Yeah, the structure. Directed. Routine. So I remember picture. Yeah, probably the next 3-4 weeks we had a roast.
Hey.
Right.
How you doing?
I think.
Man first.
Last
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not this one.
So I'm always debating, like I'm in, it has YouTube, it doesn't have.
Well, you want to turn it over to the audience?
The audience is previously. Why is it on?
That's right. Yeah, when I was. Oh, yeah.
Members in the audience.
Why are they doing that?
Get it now. No. Comment section. We want to make certain that you keep freezing God. Or you can unmute yourself and automate.
I'm kidding.
They are automated. Yeah, that's.
Finally. I have a single attendant of the general check. People make their say, like, those that want 950 are. Got in there. That's a fun one.
He's out of, he's in college. Yes. Turn it on. Okay, I'm gonna try this again. And members of the audience hear us. Could you? Members of the audience, can you hear us? This is a mic check. Okay, thank you, Paul.
Yes.
We are still, of course, 4 minutes short, just making certain everything's connected.
Yeah, I heard the.
I did.
Cars were there last week.
Nippy, how are you?
Yeah, it's not gonna get everybody.
That's just live.
Yeah. So do we even leave it on or?
Is it interfering with sound?
I don't,
It's not choppy, then I think we go.
yeah, as soon as it becomes choppy, we'll turn it off. Well, what my wife would say is, they have my nose, they have Niffy, and they have Deb, and they have Dave's nose, or the brim of his hat.
What more do you need?
Exactly.
Noses and.
If it gets choppy, I think we want.
Yeah,
You had that inquisitive look.
Handle it visually.
Oh. Like abbreviation.
Yeah.
Like OMG and LOL and LMAO.
Laughing out loud is not fit. Says online, does it mean something else?
New language. No, I don't know.
While we're waiting, make sure everybody, your phones are off, please.
Do they actually work here?
We'll hear Patty, yeah, they work. We'll hear Patty's music.
Yeah.
It's good music. It is good music.
Not here.
Picky.
I don't work here.
No, mine's not working.
Goes fast. She's.
Oh, sassy.
Something else, just.
I didn't know.
That's not what's going on.
I'll see if it was.
There's something about.
It's still not red. Saw that. I guess they said they had them from the Indiana. So they heard on the back of the truck going the other way.
and if I can get one final test from members of the audience, if one individual could just unmute yourself and talk, just to make certain that we have the volume, et cetera. It looks like Beth, you unmuted, go ahead.
Yeah, you sound really good. I'm Beth Listepa. Thanks for inviting me today.
Thank you for being here, and we heard you loud and clear.
Okay, let's, we've got about a half a minute. Let's go ahead and start. I'm gonna call the meeting to order, please. And welcome everyone, this evening, both online and, here present. We're gonna start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the roll, Chris Creech,
Present?
Nippy,
Present.
Dave Primer, here, and I think Steve Green is online.
Here.
Okay. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing no additions. The agenda will stand. Are there any conflicts of interest of the board related to any of the agenda items?
No.
No?
None?
Dave? No, okay. All right, let's get to the minutes. We have several minutes that have been posted as draft minutes that we need to approve. They were posted on the website. Approval of the January 19th meeting minutes.
I would move to approve all the outstanding sets of minutes
Okay.
As one motion,
as one motion.
Motion.
second that motion.
I'll second that. Oh, Chris, second.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so we have three ayes and 2 opposed.
So with the nay, is that we need to individually approve each minute? The motion was to approve the batch at once?
We approved it. There were 3 ayes, correct?
Yes.
So the batch is all approved.
Okay.
Okay. All right, going to reports, treasurer's report. Chris,
Thank you.
which is posted on the website.
Yes, thank you. It is posted on the website, the treasurer's report and all corresponding reports. I'm going to go from the treasurer's report and just talk about a few of the highlights and information that I think is important to cover. For the period of March 2023, the district spent, there is a typo on the treasurer's report. We did not spend $8,458,000. We spent $8,458.29. 2 noted items, and for consistency, I will always notate any item above $1,000. We spent $2,199 on station repairs. This is specifically for plumbing repairs. And we spent $1,864 on life-saving equipment. The life-saving equipment is in line with traditional spending. The station repairs were unexpected, but certainly within budget. We've spent $76,000 year to date, and according to budgeted spend, we have an additional $135,000. Roughly $136,000 additional in planned spend for this year. For the same period, March 23, we collected $69,421 in revenue. $67,994 came from Jefferson County, and we received roughly $14,000 in interest income from our reserve account. We have expected $139,000 in additional revenue. That will be additional tax revenue, which basically is guaranteed income. And we have an estimated $12,800 in projected interest income. That may go up. The likelihood that it'll go down is small. As we all know, the Fed raised interest rates, therefore the interest on our account will go up. So there's a possibility that our interest income will increase, but likely not.
I'm curious on that. This is a traditional savings account, right?
That's a very good question. And it's not necessarily worth, it is a traditional savings account, meaning it's 100% secured. We have been approached by Colorado Trust. They have basically an investment account that they have requested or asked us to analyze, which the investment utility is basically based on a $10 purchase, and the interest is the same, but the benefit if we were to decide to move our money into more of a long-term is if that $10 fluctuates up or down. Personally, the benefit's not worth the risk.
Okay.
Because of the small dollar amount that we have, we're going to receive the same amount of interest monthly. So why would we risk any downside?
Right.
Even though there's probably a higher potential for upside,
I'm just curious if we have enough in savings that we'd be willing to put into like a certificate of deposit, because I'm seeing outrageous rates like 5% on 9 months.
that's certainly something that we could look into. I don't know that Colorado Trust specifically has, they have 3-tiered accounts.
Mhm.
We're in like the highest interest rate that's not fluctuating in value.
Right.
But agreed that our reserves, the reserve account, and you'll see me notate this in a little bit, it's just reserve money. We're not touching it. We don't withdraw from it. We budget according to our anticipated income. Therefore, we do have something like $400,000 that is,
It's not earning the highest interest rate. is
it's
all.
not, it's definitely not earning the highest interest rate. So it is something that we could, and if requested, I will research more. So. March 31st, statement of financial period, you'll see our total bank accounts is 417,000. That does combine our operating checking account as well as our reserve account. Total cash on hand right this moment represents 1.74% of our 2023 expected revenue. So just to make folks aware, if we did not get any money, period, of tax revenue for 1 year and 9 months, we could operate. We all know how tax revenue works. It's not going away. It's guaranteed income. So we are in a financially sound position with our reserve accounts. Looking at the budget versus actuals, again, all of these reports are online, but there are a few things I want to note if you pay attention to the budget versus actual as posted. First off, the budgeted items are averaged out each month. So you're going to see certain items that look extraordinarily out of line. For instance, gas expense. Well, we budget for the entire year, but we're about to move into a season where we won't be using much propane. So our gas expense will balance out. While we have a heavy load at the front of the year, we don't spend a lot in fuel at the end of the year or in the summer months. So you will see some items that look extraordinarily high or low. That's just because it's a balancing of an annual expense. Payroll, there are still some 2022 payroll items that were paid in middle of January that are on the books now, but they were budgeted for last year. It's just when checks get cashed, they get posted. And so we do see payroll looks a little high, but that's only because it was spent from December. There are several items that you will see in both budget versus actuals, as well as transactional items that have double posted. I'm trying to resolve that. There are several credit card transactions that appear to have posted 2 times. We didn't pay for it twice. It's not on the credit card statement, or it didn't debit our checking account 2 times. It's just that QuickBooks incorporated it 2 times, and I'm trying to resolve that. So if there are any specific issues, questions on those, then you feel free to reach out to me. You will see Station 2 has a much higher than expected television and internet cost. That is because we are transitioning to Starlink, and there is an equipment purchase that wasn't planned for, but it's still in line with contingency spending. And so we purchased the equipment, which shows our monthly spend to be much higher than is expected. However, in the long term, we will lower the per month internet cost from 170-ish to 110. So there is long-term savings that comes from us moving to Starlink versus Viasat. And finally, we have 100% received all pending refunds from Smith & Associates, and we are up to date on those transactions. If there are any questions related to any specific line item, action, or any individual line item, then I will answer those if I can. Otherwise, that's all that I have for Treasurer's report.
Any questions from audience?
You said we had 1.7 some percent, which you meant was 1.7 times revenue.
Yes.
Yeah, 174% of revenue.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, 1 point. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. We have 174% of expected revenue in checking accounts today. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions?
All right. Chief's report. Kyle, are you with us?
I am. I just joined. Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening, Kyle. Can you guys hear Kyle?
Yes.
Is that the max volume?
Let me test.
Okay, back here.
Okay, all right. Well,
I think it's yeah, Kyle, we can hear you.
Perfect. Let me pull that up on my side. So this is was a little bit of a longer Chiefs report. So we will kind of go through, we're not going to go through line by line. But we'll kind of go through the big ones that are important here. And then there's also some folks that I think are online that I'm going to have chat as we go through some of the different items here. So as you guys know, this is the second month of my transition into the position. So still in the first 90 days. One of the more significant things that we did was clean out Station 1. The bottom of Station 1, the office really wasn't in a usable state. And I've been trying to spend some time in the district. And also, spending time returning with firefighters and whatnot. So we spent some time cleaning out Station 1 to make sure that it was ready to go for use. And then working on a relationship establishment within the department, working with the firefighters, working with community members, attending community events, and then looking at this last phase of the first 90 days, looking at outside relationships and working on relationships with both law enforcement, with the sheriff's office, the new sheriff themselves or herself. And also then with the chiefs and commanding officers of our surrounding districts. I started that a little bit this week, meeting with some of the chiefs from the Golden area that would have been on Monday that I met with them. On the regional and county level, it's roughly the same things that we talked about last month. There is some conversation about delegation of authority and financial responsibility as it pertains to wildland and all hazard incidents from the county level, and some documentation that's taking place there. So there's been some reworks of different documentation that would come to the district in a large event. As for delegation of authority, that did not happen during the Bear Fire, which we'll talk about in a bit here, because we were able to retain it ourselves. So that delegation of authority is required for us to be able to elevate the incident from our command structure up into the incident command structure that goes to the county level, and then up to the state and federal level. So that happens at each time we transfer that way. There's also a really interesting kind of movement that's happening between the mountain chiefs. Go ahead. Was there a question?
No.
Okay. The mountain chiefs looking at mutual aid, basically a group mutual aid agreement between all of the mountain chiefs. There was some of that in place prior. However, there's been some definition changes regarding an initial attack period that was originally listed for 24 hours and has been changed to 12 to better accommodate volunteer schedules. And that has not been signed yet. It's still very much in the draft phase, but it's something that's being looked at amongst all the cooperators in the mountain area. The chiefs meeting this last month, I was actually not able to attend in person because I was on shift here in Netherlands, but I was briefed afterwards by some of the other chiefs that were in attendance. But in general, those are kind of the bigger things that are happening on the county level. Apologize there. Let's see here. Admin, we talked about the clean out of Station 81. When we went through the initial clean out, it was definitely discovered that there's lots of documentation that has been, I would call it legacy documentation in that office that definitely outdates the requirements for us to be retaining documentation for the district. That needs to be sorted through for both retention and disposal as we kind of clean out and move forward. And then the other really big administrative thing that we need to hit here is the spending policy. So as we move forward after the purchase of the vehicles and looking through the policy manual, that was identified that there was not identified or a defined spending policy for the district. And looked at the different spending policies for districts around ours, and created a draft policy. That's not an SOG, but it's a policy for spending for the district. It has different levels of spending for lieutenants, and board members and the fire chief, and then different levels of spending for the board and different requirements for sourcing quotes. Essentially what this does is it allows.
I'm sorry, Chief Vincent, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
I see that we might have this posted twice. It's in your report. It's also in new business 5.1. If we're discussing it now, can we remove 5.1 from new business, which is?
Now let's do it in new business.
Do it in new business. Okay,
Do
thank you.
new business. My apologies. I'm just kind of going through here. Cool. Operations. So there's been a total of 17 calls for service in 2023. We saw a little bit of an uptick in call volume and call, I guess I would call severity type this last month, and we'll hit on a few of them. There's one of them that's not listed in the report that I think we should chat about. All of the data reports were attached to the chief's report for the board's review and for the public's review. The first big call for us to review is actually the one that's not listed here. It was a mutual aid request for the Hogback fire. And that was during a red flag day. And we were requested for a type 6 engine and also for a tactical tender, which we were able to field relatively quickly. Despite some communications errors, we found out after the fact that our main communications tower on Mount Thornton had been knocked down or had been knocked out of service. And so we had some communications issues getting in and out to JeffCom, but we were able to field both of those apparatus fully staffed with fully qualified members. And we're able to help make a big difference on that fire. Both those crews were used in tactical roles throughout that whole initial attack period. So great job by those guys. I know particularly the group on the engine got tasked with something pretty unique. They stretched over 1,000 feet of vertical plumbing or line up the side of the Hogback, which was a really unique opportunity for them. And they did a really great job on all respects from, all of the chiefs that I had heard from that fire. So kudos to that crew. They did a fantastic job. And then a few days later, we had our own. So we went from going to help our neighbors for them coming to help us. So on April 1st, Golden Gate Fire Protection District was toned to a potential wildland fire that was quickly upgraded to a active wildland fire on Bear Road. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bear Road. It is a offshoot on the lower portion of the canyon. That's definitely got a steep grade up to the top, but there's quite a few homes that are up there. We were toned with our mutual aid partners from Fairmount Fire, and they were able to basically arrive on scene with our crews. Fairmount's initial responding officer assumed initial command. And our crews initially went into a direct attack. So we're going to take a second for a moment, or take a stop for a moment and acknowledge our initial attack crews on our two Type 6 engines that took some really exceptionally brave moves and went on direct attack on the above the fire, which is, I talked to Lieutenant Patton about some of those decisions that he made and made some really good calculated decisions and some risk assessments and went direct with that fire and saved the home directly. It is the direct actions of our firefighters from Golden Gate that saved the home on the very top of Bear Road. So that was an initial action, and they did a fantastic job doing that. So yeah, big thanks to those guys and big accommodation. And we also received help from Golden Fire, Arvada Fire, Foothills Fire, Genesee Fire, and Timberline, and also DFPC on that fire. So we had lots of help. So again, it was definitely a unique scenario where we were able to lend aid, and then that aid got lended back to us. It really shows proof of how the system works. And why it's so important for us to have these mutual aid agreements moving forward.
Did you clarify, just for my knowledge, you said DFPC?
Yep, Division of Fire Prevention and Control. It is, you guys will hear me mention that a few times in this report. It's essentially the state, for anyone who is not familiar with that acronym, it's the state entity for the fire service. They're not necessarily a governing entity, but they provide air resources, hand crews. They're definitely heavily involved in the wildland arena and also on the structural certification arena statewide.
Yeah, we have a question from the audience.
Sure.
Just wondering
We-
what caused the loss of the, or knockout of the transmitter on Thoroton? Was it those the same big winds that were causing the
Yep.
problem?
That's
I can
my
do-
understanding, was that it was winds.
One request for audience, we'll ask you to state your name because people don't know who's asking. So if you could state your name and then ask your question, please.
That was Meredith Rehut.
Thank you.
Yes, Meredith, my understanding was that it was winds. It took out communications for both Jefferson County and for Boulder County and the foothills. If you guys remember that the winds that day were very, very severe. On the day of both of these days, actually, for the Hogback fire and for Bear fire. Thankfully, Thornton was back up for our fire, but that could have caused, even more communications difficulty for our fire. They both occurred on red flag days. And you guys I'm going to mention some of the red flag stuff later on. But we had extreme winds with really extreme potential for fire behavior on both of those days. And we did witness some extreme fire behavior. And we already talked about the actions of our firefighters, but also important that all initial responders, that we were able to stop that fire on Bear Road. I've driven up that road and looked at that stop, and they were able to make a stop right on the road. And if you guys aren't familiar with that area, if they were not able to make a stop on that road, that fire would have gone for hundreds and hundreds of acres. And they were able to contain it to under 8 by, their actions by holding it on that road. It was really something spectacular from all respects. And I think I just want to address some of the other stuff. So I was actually unable to be present on that fire. Again, I was on duty at Nederland and was not able to leave my post here despite my best efforts. I want to make sure that everyone knows I cannot begin to express the pride I feel in our firefighters and our mutual aid agencies, and the gratitude I feel to all those parties for those actions. And then if anybody has any further questions on my chief's report, the incident report is attached. So we don't need to go through the entirety of the report unless there's any further questions.
Chief Benson, I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask, and one of them is directly tied to the statement you just made. You weren't able to be here. You were on duty at Nederland. I recall through our interview process and our hiring discussions that you have a specific schedule at Nederland. You made it known to us when you were hired, but I don't know if that's part of what could you just describe what that schedule at Nederland looks like? And the reason I ask the question is we had what could have been a major event in our district, and our chief, based on our known, we know that you have that commitment, but what does it really look like? And what could our district expect, if you stay on with Nederland in that position?
Sure. So in my current position at Nederland is as a shift captain. So I maintain essentially incident command the entire district of Nederland for 48 hours at a time. It's on a rotating ABC shift. So it's a 6-day rotating shift where I am essentially dedicated to all functions responsible for all functions of the district while I'm here. And just for initial emergency response. Does that make sense? Hopefully that's clear and simple enough.
I think so. Maybe if I said that we should expect that every 6 days you're going to be at command at Nederland, and therefore could be limited in how you serve our district.
That's correct, sir.
And that's for a full 48-hour period.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question for Kyle. Kyle, can you hear me?
But I can hear you, Steve.
How did the fire on Bear Road start?
So to my knowledge, or not to my knowledge, the fire is still under investigation. I think there's a couple of different working theories, but there is nothing that's been officially released yet from the investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We have a audience member online with their hand raised, identified as JB. You can unmute yourself if you have a question or comment. Or you can type it into the chat panel and I can read it for you. We can continue. That may have been an error.
It looks like no comment.
Yeah, no comment.
Okay. And if there's any other questions from the community, you feel free to contact me and I can give you more information. I think the great synopsis of what occurred during that day is in the incident report that's attached to my report. And that was written by Assistant Chief Chris Enright, who also deserves some incredible accommodation for incident command on that call. He did a fantastic job.
How plugged in were you to what was happening, even though you were not in district?
I did my best I could. We had a couple of confounding factors. First of all, the cell reception that was available to incident command on that site was very limited. So they tried to be able to inform me as frequently as they could by a cell phone. And then I was able to monitor the radio traffic. But I stayed as plugged in as I possibly could. I spoke to DFPC as well, trying to coordinate any additional resources that we may need.
And obviously the safety of our district was well maintained, but is there any question of leadership responsibility with a chief from our district not being on site at a situation like this? Is that a concern that you have, that positionally speaking, that there's any harm to your reputation, to your staff, et cetera, when you're not able to attend a situation like this?
I mean, it's definitely a little bit of an awkward situation, especially considering the fact that there were multiple other chiefs from other agencies, like Chief One, like highest level chief, from our neighbors. And I think that can lead to some confusion. But we had chief officers from Golden and from Foothills and from Genesee, and I think potentially even from Fairmount, that were all on scene.
Are those full-time chiefs?
Correct. Just for clarification, I think at this point, I am the only part-time chief in Jefferson County, so it can be assumed that all the other chiefs are full-time.
And Kyle, I didn't ask that question as a way to criticize you. We were made aware of your commitment before we hired you. So we now see the effect of this, what was part of your knowledge that you had other commitments and that it could prevent you from being here. I just asked that because I wonder if your staff has given you any feedback with concern that you were absent during probably what was our biggest threat, at least in my knowledge in our district. I just want to make certain that your staff doesn't hold that against you in any way.
No, I don't think that there's anything that's coming from the firefighters. I'm sure that, it would have been great to have me there for lots of different reasons for our staff to be able to support our people. It's definitely hard as a chief to know that your people are out there working hard. And you're kind of sitting on the sideline, or not even on the sideline, but watching from afar. But I did address that with all of the firefighters, and I think that they definitely understand the position that the district is currently in with the fire chief. And I really, again, thank Chief Enright for stepping up and making that role happen. And he did a great job.
Thank you for answering my questions.
No problem. All right. Any other questions before we move on?
I want to make one more comment. I want to apologize to JB, and this is just a sorry little laughing matter. My cursor happened to be placed above his name, and my cursor above his name is what the hand up was. So JB, I didn't mean to call you out. It wasn't your hand up. It was my cursor that made it look like it. So
Actually, it does that.
yeah, now I recognize it. So I won't do that again. Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to personnel. So we currently have 20 members are on the roster. We did have one member that was on a leave of absence, turn in his equipment. And we hope that someday that we will be able to get that member back when their life circumstances change to make it a little bit more accommodating to volunteer. This is a kind of a common thing I think that the board is aware of, but they're, retaining, both gaining and retaining volunteer firefighters is quite difficult, especially when someone ebbs and flows with their life. So we're trying to make sure that we maintain contact with people if they do leave based off of their life circumstances, and make sure that it's known that they're continually part of the fire family, and that we'll welcome them back at any time with open arms. So we make sure that this person understands that, that we definitely want them to remain part of the Golden Gate Fire Protection District family, and we really would love to have them back at some point when it's more favorable to their life circumstances. But on the other side of that, we actually have some pretty good interest in the district currently. We have one lateral, which is a full qualified firefighter EMT from Golden, who is very interested in becoming part of our fire district. I have spoken to Chief Bondis today, who worked through the initial application period, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the IGA in a second. We're about to schedule interviews with this firefighter. But again, this person is fully qualified, doesn't require any training from other than district familiarization, but initial certification training by us, which is a really great thing for us. We also have two other community members that live in district that have expressed interest in joining the district. I've met with both of them, and both of them are taking steps for application and interviews. So that's a really great sign for us moving forward, that we have that kind of interest. I mean, these are for operational volunteers, for people who are interested in emergency response. Training, we'll hit through this real quick. Training calendar got published. We originally were allocated 4 positions for the Golden Fire Academy. We have 2 people attending. And again, that's a big thank you to all of our firefighters and officers and community members that made that connection happen. But also, this is an additional thank you to all of our firefighters and officers that have offered to help teach that academy, which is what is, allowing us to participate and really engage with our neighbors, which is a really great thing for our fire district. So a big thank you to those guys. This is a big one for us. Chief Enright, as we talked about last meeting, had passed his practical, and now he's passed all portions of his Fire Officer 1, and he is a fully certified fire officer in the eyes of the state of Colorado. And that is a huge deal. All right. The other big or kind of announcement for us is that we're in the initial stages of planning a combined Firefighter 2 Academy. At this point, it looks like Golden Gate will most likely be the host of this Firefighter 2 Academy, and it would be for Golden Gate Fire Protection District firefighters, Golden Fire Protection District firefighters, and Timberline firefighters. There's a lot of need for this in our region, and we look forward to working with those partners to make that academy happen in the future. IGA transition, some of this has been updated as of today. So the IGA was written between myself and Timberline's chief, and I received the final version of that IGA today, and it is in front of you guys for signature. The action items that came from removing the training portion of that IGA have been enacted or in process of inaction. So the RMS, which is the records management system where we maintain all of our certifications for fire, has been moved over to me from the state. IQS, which is for wildland fire certification, is in the process of being moved over in the state. That actually, it sounds like, never left the district. But it's being transferred for access between what was previous Chief DeFeo and myself. So the state's currently working on that. And then the National Registry, which is our EMS certification records management system, and is also being transferred over, and that's in cooperation with Centura. Target Solutions, which was the software solution that was being used as part of that IGA through the Special Districts Association. That contract has been canceled. However, it was a prepaid contract that went through the end of the year. So therefore, we're going to retain access to that platform until January of 2024. If we needed to gain any access for records management, but it's not something that we're going to continue to use moving beyond that. So again, that was a district expense that occurred in last January that will not occur next January. Any questions on training? All right.
Kyle, do you need a motion on that IGA to get signed?
Did we add that? I apologize since I missed the initial portion of the meeting when I was teaching a class. Did we add that to the agenda?
It's not added to the agenda, but it's addressed in your report, so we can make
Okay.
motion on it as a result of your report. So we can
Yes, ma'am.
motion on it at this point.
Do we have a secretary?
Do we need a motion?
Well, it's a dual countersigned document, which requires an attestation from the secretary and from the chair of each board.
Is that,
I don't know if that's required. We right now don't have a secretary. Would you like us to get a secretary?
our district, I don't think our bylaws have any requirement that specific officer titles be assigned to accepting any document. So unless it's specifically
There are a couple things in the bylaws that require 2 signatures.
2 signatures, but does it designate that it has to be officer, meaning any board member can be a second signatory, right?
Sheila, go ahead.
Yeah, as long as the president signs and you can designate somebody to sign in
Sure.
lieu of the secretary.
Okay, thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. You make a motion?
I move that we adopt the IGA as presented by the chiefs of Timberline and Golden Gate Fire Protection District.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a
Aye.
discussion?
Yes, we can have
Sure,
discussion.
Sure.
Well, I haven't gotten to see that. When was that sent out?
Go ahead, Kyle, you want to answer that? It's pretty much the same. I've looked it over. It's pretty much the same IGA. It's the training. There's no money involved in this.
Yes,
Pretty much the same is not the same as seeing it. I wouldn't mind seeing that before you vote on it.
Okay.
Steve, do you want me to, I can send a copy to your email.
Sure. How long is it?
A page and a half.
Page and a half.
It's essentially, Steve, what it does is actually, if I, just so I don't cause an issue, if Chris, do you mind sending that to Steve?
I don't,
Yes.
I think you should vote on that after we've all had a chance to actually read it and think about it.
Sure.
Have you read the previous IGA?
It's the previous IGA.
So Steve, it's the previous IGA with the training components and the financial components removed.
Well, who has read it down in there?
I have read it.
I've read it.
I've read it.
I haven't seen it.
Have you seen the previous IGA?
Oh, yeah. It's the same.
It's been a long time since I looked at the previous IGA.
Dave, do you feel comfortable voting on it based on your thorough understanding of the previous IGA, and all this is it takes out the money and the training component? Okay.
It took out the funds that were standing up there.
Yeah.
What is the agreement? What is it actually? Why an agreement above and beyond mutual and auto aid?
So it's a separate agreement for recruitment. So based off of the funding that Timberline got through their SAFER grant for
Okay.
recruitment, that's something that's required, and it's actually funding that just comes from the federal government.
Got it.
So there's no financial component from us. Essentially just means that they are going to offer, or that we need to, that they're going to continue to help us with recruitment. The one thing that's in there that Chief Bondus and I did tweak is that Golden Gate is going to, instead of doing like the dual recruitment like application that has been done in the past, we're going to separate the application so it looks like you're applying just to Golden Gate or you're applying just to Timberline, which should help that clarification for applicants in the future. And
think
then
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Also, will we be able to recruit on our own if we have the opportunity to, or is it always going through Bondus?
We will be able to recruit.
Okay. I haven't read it, but even though it's been sent, it's hard to read during a Zoom meeting.
Any further discussion?
Motion to vote on the IGA?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And Dave?
I'm going to abstain because I haven't read it yet.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion passes. Kyle, you have more?
Yes, and so if I just need to get the signed version of that IGA so I can get that to Timberline, their board meeting is on the 25th and they will sign it on their side on the 25th.
We'll need fresh copies because I've marked up my version.
Like copy and he messed it up.
We'll electronically sign and get it to you by tomorrow morning.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Planning and life safety. As we talked about in the last board meeting, we did have one pending plan. Golden Fire is in the process of reviewing that plan for us. I did meet with the fire marshal from Golden to discuss future opportunities for review processes. And they did express that they have the ability to assist the district with plan review. However, until we're able to move forward with an official plan, I did establish a pipeline with the DFPC Planning and Life Safety Unit. So again, that's Division of Fire Prevention and Control. They provide plan review for small districts that don't have, like our own, that do not have the ability to do plan review. And essentially it's just what's called a technical services agreement per each plan that goes there. And it just allows them to review it for us and then move forward with that plan. And this is just to make sure everyone understands what we're looking at when we're talking about plan reviews is just for people who are installing residential sprinklers. It's something that has to be reviewed by someone who is a fire inspector level 3, which there are very, very few in the state of Colorado. So it's something that we are trying to negotiate waters moving forward as far as who we send those to for review. It's not for looking at the overall plan of a building. The only things that we look at as far as residential homes, which is the majority of our district, is just residential sprinklers if they're being installed, driveways and exterior elevation if it's required by the county. And thankfully for driveways, we have our own traffic engineer, which is great. A great asset to us. So that's that as far as planning and life safety. Logistics, there's quite a lot here. So we'll kind of try to, again, hit the highlights. Both trucks that we spoke about in the last meeting have been acquired. They are both in district. The 2017 was registered and plated. The 2016 needs to get emissions before we can get plates on it. Unfortunately, it's just 1 year outside of that window where we needed to get emissions on it for registration. However, it does have temporary tags and it is ready for use. Lieutenant Patton is working on the graphics for those trucks as well currently. Hopefully that should be done relatively quickly.
So the question, Chief, I saw that we have the decals on them. Are they going to stay silver or are they going to go? There's no red?
No, they're going to stay silver. Doing a paint change on those trucks would be prohibitively cost prohibitive. And I think that truthfully, the way that we're moving forward with the logoing will look very professional, where instead of us, trying to mess with the paint color.
It'll have red on it, red stripe.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Hazard on the back, logos.
Red light?
They got like.
They've got lights galore.
The important things, okay? Just trying to make sure.
So the thing that has been really fortuitous about this truck purchase is that we were able to really establish a great relationship with Colorado State Patrol's logistics section. Through that relationship, we have been very fortunate to be the recipient of several other donations that are quite significant to our operations and also to our budget. The first one was the donation of 2 Motorola APX 6500 800 megahertz radios, which are for the trucks, and also two Motorola APX 6500 VHF radios. The current market brand new value of those radios is north of $10,000 per unit. not including install. It's very significant, and we are still going to have to pay for the install on those through AV Tech and Golden, and I'm working with them right now on that. But it is a significant donation that they were able to give those to us for those trucks, and definitely saves us on the budget. The next thing that we move forward with CSP is the donation of 15 Motorola APX 6000s, which are 800 megahertz handheld radios. And I cannot express how big of a deal this is for our district, considering the fact that we have had radio issues. We continue to have firefighters who cannot be issued radios based off of the amount that we currently have that are in service, and also our aging fleet radios that are continuing to have issues and have to be taken out of service. So they donated us 15 radios earlier this week. Each of those radios, just the normal radio value, not including the accessories, is over $6,000 brand new. With the accessories, even on the used market, that donation is over $90,000 in value to the district. So that donation is really going to be something significant for us as far as improving the safety of our firefighters, drastically improving our communications abilities with radios. And, beyond that, the thing that's also great is that CSP Logistics has agreed to work with us to replace every radio within our district and also outfit our trucks with our radio position or radio for each riding position, which is the FEMA standards and NFPA standards for safety for communications, and brings us up that next level of safety for our firefighters and also for our neighbors that use our apparatus for communications, such like as a larger wildland incident or in a rescue incident. It really is going to drastically improve our safety profile for the district. And it's a huge undertaking for them to be able to do that for us. And I am internally grateful for that. Those radios, Chris, or Assistant Chief Enright, is working with the communications shop for Jeffco to get those programmed as soon as possible so we can get them out and operating.
Kyle, I assume we need to, I don't know formal accounting terms, but put these into our capital as a capital item. Do we have any sort of donation receipt or any sort of documentation that I can present to our accountant?
Yep. So anything that comes from the county or from state patrol, or anytime a public safety radio transitions hands, there has to be documentation of it so it can be appropriately programmed. So we do have documentation on that. It does not have the value on it. I might be able to get something from the state that has the value. However, I think we could probably also move forward with the market value and put that towards the district's total valuation as far as equipment. And also, I don't think we can depreciate it, but it does count towards our capital total, and also for insurance.
Yeah, I would assume we would want to have these insured. So anything that you get to me, I'll turn it over to the accountant. Thank you.
Okay. Other additional operational logistics, Station 82 and 81 repair projects, the plumbing projects and drywall have been completed. There's a huge thank you to all the community members that made that happen, and also the firefighters that worked on painting and drywall and plumbing and making sure that we could get contractors in and out of the station. So thank you to everybody who made that happen. Okay. All right, so let's hit communications. So in the last meeting, we talked about some concerns about the website. It was brought to my attention that the state actually has what's called the State Internet Portal Authority, which is a state entity that hosts websites for special districts and also for all the state sub-entities, like, throughout the entire government, and was able to speak to them and actually have a representative online to answer any questions that we have after this statement. We'll take a break from my report to see if we have any questions for her. But essentially they will host our website for free. And it's a very secure website at the state level. And we also have been able to retain or enter discussions with a web developer by the name of Becca Cossey. And she has offered to volunteer her time at no cost to Golden Gate Fire Protection District to build us a new website on the state portal. And then also moving forward to manage all of our media and help us increase our outward facing communications to our neighbors and to our community through social media and through the website and newsletters moving forward. She has been a great asset already in communications and helping me figure out, what to move forward with as far as the website and what needs to be done. And we're looking to put her into a volunteer position as a digital information manager, not necessarily in the role of what we consider a public information officer, someone who officially releases information from the district, but someone who can take information from myself or from someone else who's designated by myself and put that out to the public and manage those profiles. And I know we also have some firefighters that help with that, but to really collaborate with them and maybe loosen or lessen some of that load moving forward. She is not able to join with us this evening. She was hoping to, but unfortunately she is traveling. I do have a copy of her resume if anybody is curious about that before we move forward with her. She will go through the application process with us as becoming a volunteer, and she will go through a background check and everything as we move forward. However, I do think I do want to take this moment and see if Beth, are you still online?
She's there.
Beth, so I think if anybody from the board or the community has questions for Beth, she's here to answer them.
Beth, real quickly, one of my questions, this is Niffy, a board member. Do we retain our domain name? Do we have to purchase that from our previous provider? And do we retain that same domain, or do we need to change our domain name?
You may keep your own domain name, but you will build on colorado.gov. So basically the URL that we will give you will be GGF, let's say PD.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. .colorado.gov. That's what you will build on. You are able to keep that and use that going forward. Or if you'd like to continue to use the domain that you have, you would have to purchase that to keep it. And when the website is built, we can proxy it or redirect it back to what people are used to.
Yep.
This is a question either for Kyle or Beth. I know that when we went through this discussion with our previous administrator, we were presented with somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $6,000 in transactional costs to make this transition. I've heard that is that going away, that whatever that charge was? Because I've heard that this is a free service from the state. So it was the consulting services that was going to transition our data from our current website, and that cost is no longer needed, or am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct. And Beth, correct me if we need here, but that was if we were going to use a consultant that would have been referred by the State Internet Portal Authority. And that is what Becca is, the role that Becca is taking in building the website moving forward as a volunteer.
Awesome.
Is that correct? Is that correct, Beth?
That is correct. So if you have your own volunteer doing that work, however, what I would suggest is we have a micro grant program that's going to open on June 1st, and that I would apply for a micro grant to have your information migrated from your old site to your new site. So maybe you could pay your volunteer or use it for training your staff to help do the website updates or something like that. And you can apply up to, I think, $6,500.
Is that
So
already?
we might pay you to do it. How about that?
I love that. Is that already the grant application posted, or is that something that we need to be aware to look at? Can we request to get that sent, or how are we going to get that application?
It's going to open on June 1st. So Kyle is definitely on our email list. I think so. Is it Becca? I think I have her email now too. She's in our system. They will receive notices about that. But yeah, it'll be open June 1st to July 14th.
And just so the board knows that Becca has already filled out the paperwork to get permissions from the state to access the Colorado.gov building platform and is ready to move forward.
Kyle and Becca, I have some background information on our website. Kyle, I'll leave it in the office for you to get to Becca.
Okay.
Is that the best way? It's just some history.
Okay.
Some numbers and names and stuff.
Okay.
She may need, so I'll leave that in the office.
So I think in general, as we move forward, I don't know if we need the board to make a motion to move forward with this. It is an outward facing district decision to move forward with changing the website and the hosting provider. However, it should not come with any financial cost to the district.
Before we, I want to read a question from the Zoom audience, and Beth, this question is directly to you. Beth, can you explain the advantages of being with the state portal as it pertains to turnover of employees and board members?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So first of all, the security, you're going to be on a .gov platform. So number one, that makes it more secure than any other type of website that's out there, just because of the protections that the .gov holds. But we are also a local company. We are a government ourselves, SIPA, and the people that help us do the websites are stationed here in Colorado. And we are only ever looking out for the people of Colorado and the governments of Colorado. So we have a help desk that is available from, it's going to be 24/7 now, but I would say during normal working hours. So if you have any type of turnover, you just give us a call, the help desk, or myself or anyone in our office, and we can get you one-on-one training so we can get somebody back up and running. And lots of times people don't think about it and like, oh, we need our agenda before, the 24-hour period that it's meant to post. And sometimes we can't get those permissions in place, but if you give us what you need up, we have administrators who can pop that up so that you're good to go.
That sounds great.
Well, we understand there's a lot of changes in government, so we try to do as much hand holding as we can, because we just try to take some of the onerous off you and help you. So we know that there's not a lot of time and support all the time and funds. So that's what we're here to help you with.
We have a question. We have a question from our audience.
So this is Sheila Carlin. I have two questions. First, is there any MOU or data use agreement required to do this? And also, is there a data storage limit on how much space we can have on those? Because in the past, we've had a lot of our past minutes and resolutions and all kinds of documents on there, which sort of adds up storage space. So I just wanted to see if that was possible to do that too.
Let me answer that question, because I already forgot the first question, but there really isn't. I mean, you'd have to be way out there to have a limit on there. What we put everything up in the media file, which is on the platform, and we suggest that that's how you upload and keep documents stored there. However, when we're looking at House Bill 211110, you are going to want to take down as many PDFs as possible, just to meet the requirement if they are not accessible for screen readers and things like that. So that's another issue coming up. So that's not a problem on your storage. So what was the first question? Sorry.
Is there a data use agreement or an MOU that's required for the district to engage with this service?
Sure. So there's a couple things that are going to happen. The eligible government entity agreement that needs to be signed. That's so that we can do business together in the first place. And that's mostly for SIPA. It's an audit thing, because we can't go around giving free websites to just anybody. It does have to be some sort of government in Colorado. That's all we serve. And then what we have is an entity registration. That means that we're going to spin up that URL for you on colorado.gov. And the third piece of that is really a security agreement. Who's working on the website? We need to know. They get their own username and password. And if you need 500 of those, we're going to give you 500. We just ask that nobody shares their username and password. So those are all very basic documents that we have.
I have a question and follow up. What is an MOU? Thank you. Thank you.
It's kind of the equivalent to our eligible government entity agreement. And that's just saying, like I said, that you're a government in Colorado.
And they all say together. Thank you. Thank you, Beth.
Mm-hmm. So, and then the one thing I did see on your website that I liked, you have like a permit out there that where you have to download a PDF, and then you have to come send it in with the check. You also have a donation button. So we also do all the payment. We do payment processing as well. So for all the Department of Revenue, DMVs, hundreds of other governments. So there's a couple ways we can, we can spin up an online form for you that goes directly to a payment processor. So someone doesn't have to walk in with a check for you. And also your donate button goes out to PayPal, which I'm guessing you're paying some sort of fees for. So if we set it up payment processing and online forms for you, that is also at no cost to your fire district. But the end user would pay fees if you so chose not to absorb those fees.
So we would retain our PayPal account. It would just be processed through you, or would we?
Be completely separate payment process.
You'd have to, it would be completely different, right? Because PayPal costs.
Okay.
Email management, do we want to migrate our email to .gov? Or is that an option, I should say?
So actually, I was thinking, Beth, if you want to address, this is not in my report, but the Google contract from the state.
Yeah, so SIPA also holds the contract for Google at the state of Colorado. We've got over 50,000 emails out across the state, so we get extremely friendly pricing from Google. Now, we don't offer your .gov domain, so you would have to apply for that by yourself because you'd have to own it, right? SIPA doesn't own that for you. But we could also just use whatever domain you're using now. If you're using, I think, a .org, and we can tie emails to that. So if you bought an email from Google by itself online, it's $72 per user per year. SIPA can resell that to you for $46.20 per user per year. So we really get a very nice discount on that. We have our own support, so you wouldn't have to call Google and ask them for anything. So it's really very seamless, but you would have to use your own domain to have the Google licenses.
It's reselling and at a discount for us. Do they offer like the suite of services, like Google Vault in particular, something that we're interested in?
So for the 4620, that does not include Google Vault. We do have that SKU, but then you'd have to go up to Business Plus, and that's $143.17. I might be off a cent or a dollar or something, but it's $143.17. I'm going to put my foot in the ground and say that's what it is. And that gets you Vault, and it gets you tons of storage space.
Is that per user? Or is that for our entire organization?
That'll be per user per year.
Okay.
Quick, just point of information. There was some background noise coming from an audience member. I muted your microphone. If you intended to speak, and that's why you were unmuted, you'll have to unmute yourself when you do speak. So just be aware of that. Thank you.
Anything else?
I don't on that. And Kyle, as our executive, you can just take care of this, right?
Yes, I can, as long as the board does not feel like it needs an executive, like an action of the board.
I don't think so. We're not encumbering any funds.
No money.
Okay.
Go for it.
Perfect. Okay.
Steve, any questions?
It's not costing anything, so that's fine, Kyle.
Perfect. All right. This should be a really good thing. Thank you, Beth, for joining us and answering the questions. I think it'd be a great thing for the district, for cost savings and also to help improve our communications to our stakeholders in the community.
Well, great. We look forward to working with you. Thanks for having me today, and thanks for all you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And to wrap up my section here, just looking at future forward-looking items. We're still looking at having the mission, vision, value meeting. Originally, we're hoping to have that this April, this month. However, we had some scheduling conflicts between myself and Chris Enright. He is currently gone on a vacation, and I'm going to the FDIC conference, which is the firefighter or basically large instructor conference in Indianapolis next week. And so we didn't quite meet up where we could lead a mission, vision, values meeting, but that's going to happen in the first weeks of May, along with cleanup and clean out days. We're still trying to coordinate that so that we can include our firefighters that are in academy. Those are some big days for pride for our firefighters and pride for our community. And we want to make sure that we can get as many people involved as possible. So we had thrown out some initial dates that unfortunately conflict with the fire academy, and we're going to try to work around that the best we can. So we can include them in those days. Rescue 82, which is one of the pickup trucks, that's the 2016, and Chief 81 truck, are in the middle of the build out completion process. The Chief 81 truck has been stocked with equipment from the old command vehicle, and has been, as I've been calling it, decopified, where we removed all of the police equipment that was left inside of the vehicle, like radar detectors and such. And we need to work through that on Rescue 82, make sure that gets its decals, the radios installed by Avtech. The other thing that we're looking at as a unique addition to either of those trucks, or to both of those trucks actually, is a cell booster. It's something that I spoke to Avtech about after the Bear fire from the communications issues that were occurring there, and looking at commercial cell boosters in each truck, which may cost around $500 all in installed, but should be able to help us communicate in and out of a command post, especially when we're receiving data from something like the MMA, which is the multi-mission aircraft that is provided by the DFPC that flies above a fire and is able to send data from the fire down to the incident command post. So that's something that we're looking at with Avtech. We're talking about the plan review process we already spoke about. And then working on operational plans as we move forward. Is also diversified recruitment plan that we spoke about in the last meeting. At 6 months, looking at the station updates, kind of a wish list of the firefighters in the community, and seeing what we can do with a fiscally responsible budget to update those stations and make them a little bit more friendly, user-friendly and modern. Create an apparatus replacement plan, which is being worked on by the firefighters currently, and then the resident recruitment for Station 82 and the Joint Firefighter 2 Academy. The strategic concepts and visions are all essentially the same as they were last month. And then those are the attachments. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions from the audience here for Kyle?
I received information from a member of our audience that suggested, since we do need a secretary to sign the IGA, that we should have a temporary secretary assigned tonight to perform that signature.
So we don't need a secretary. We can, as long as the chair signs it, she can designate another member of the board to sign. But I can also be the temporary secretary.
I'm okay either way. I just want to make certain that, are you okay if we don't have a secretary sign, anyone signs, and Mr. Green, how do you feel?
Sign it as acting.
As acting, yeah.
And do we need a motion to appoint an
I'm
acting
going to
or
appoint myself as the acting secretary.
a second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Yes. Sounds good.
Okay. Community organization reports, auxiliary, Dee Dee?
Dee Dee Ramstetter for the auxiliary. So on the Bear fire, the auxiliary was able to take supplies to them that night, our firefighters up on Bear Road. The next morning, we supplied them with breakfast, hot coffee, water, Gatorade, snacks, and had a good conversation with them. That was good to see all of them out there. We are, the auxiliary is doing a boot purchase with the firefighters so they can have adequate boots. Terry and I happened to be the ones up there that morning, and a lot of the guys' boots were sad, should say. My excavating boots are much better than some of their boots. So the auxiliary will be putting funds toward purchasing boots for the firefighters, and the firefighters will, well, wait, let me back up. Auxiliary will put a portion, the district will put a portion, and the remainder will be bought for the firefighters out of their money. They can get their boots wherever they'd like, but they do have specifications to meet for proper footwear. So these guys are not one boot fit all.
So everybody has different needs and different styles.
Question on that, are there like communal purchasing programs out there? Maybe that's for like the chief, like.
Kyle could probably answer that.
Yeah, so to answer your question, Niffy, occasionally there are group purchase programs for PPE like boots. However, let's put it this way. For other PPE, boots tend to be really hard to do a community purchase on based off of their specificity. The one thing that we are I want to add to DD here is that we're looking for our firefighters, especially our new firefighters, to get a multi-function boot. So a boot that is certified for basically everything we do except for structure fire. So it basically becomes their go-to boot for fire. And a lot of those boots come with certain discounts from the manufacturer. And our firefighters have been so far pretty good about finding those discounts and trying to leverage them.
Sorry, Dee Dee.
Okay, no, you're good. Also, the auxiliary had a meeting, and we want to thank Kyle for coming. He attended the auxiliary meeting, introduced himself to the board and the members that were there that did not know him yet. So that was nice to open that communication door again and find out some more needs and wants. We are working with the firefighters, Kyle and Chris, on a badge ceremony that they're going to be doing to take place in May. That's more information for them to come. But the auxiliary will be supplying, their normal food, snacks, and whatever we need to do to make their life a little easier after work, to make these meetings happen at 7 o'clock in the evening. And other than that, that's all I have. So in for auxiliary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Terry.
Yeah, Terry Costelia here. Chris, thank you. We received your invoice for the trash for last year. We sent you a check, 700 and some change. We split it with you right down the middle. So you should have that check anytime now.
You sent that to me? Oh, thank you.
Well, no.
Oh, it's to the, okay.
Go box for the district.
Okay.
Ray just launched a lookout alert with support from the county commissioners. They've been very generous on supplying handouts for us. We did this after the fire at Bear Road, but we were able to hand out a lot, and I don't know, just lookout alert. Wonderful.
Sorry, can you mute
I'm in
that?
a meeting right now.
Okay, I see it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, we've been handing out lookout alert cards for people to sign up, and I was able to do that before the fire. It worked beautifully for me. My home was close to that fire. It told me the location, northeast Bear Road and Golden Gate Canyon Road. It was a wonderful tool for me and my family. We did, pack up and we're ready to evacuate. The sheriff did show up at our house, but after that, we launched it, and at the community brunch, and along with a couple of the Columbine Club, the interest in signing up for Lookout Alert was very spiked. And so we've got a lot of new members signing up on that. So that's really good. Let me see here. Also at the community brunch, Kyle and his boys joined us. It was nice to see the chief there. It's supporting with the community. And we have a craft fair this weekend on Saturday. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, going to old business, FBPA update from Mr. Perkins.
Okay, here, this is for you and your party, yes.
Yeah, you're on the board.
Yep.
Thanks, Dave.
This is the update on getting through the FPPA is. We're struggling, we got, with the minutes not being written, we have to get a written minutes tonight, so we get this turned in by the 24th. So we gotta decide, and then when we voted on this, it was, we went with a percentage, but they got the plan A, B, or C in there. And we are currently on the first plan listed. And we need to pick one of the next three plans, A, B, or C.
Didn't we pick one?
We didn't pick one before, we just did a quick analysis. They did the analysis and they come back with this, so we can pick one of those.
What do you guys
And
want?
the plan A there will be close to the one that we voted on.
Okay.
But we do need
Oh, yeah.
in writing,
Should we adjourn this meeting?
Do we have to do a pension board meeting? We don't.
just an emergency little meeting that we vote on this and go for plan A, and I can get it submitted as long as we get it in writing like she had on that page I just gave you.
Move to temporarily adjourn the fire board meeting and to have a president of the FPD board call into session the fire board.
Second.
Pension.
Thank you.
Yeah. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay,
Mr. Green, could you please vote?
he did.
Mr. Green?
He did. He said aye.
I think Dave.
All right,
Thank you.
Okay, so we're calling a special order of pension board, special pension board meeting.
Is that considered a public meeting that needs to be noticed?
Oh, I don't know, Nixon.
Here.
Well,
Well,
a question that I have. We previously discussed this. We agreed to a dollar amount increase per month.
a percentage amount.
Yes, a percentage.
So
So we, for whatever reason, minutes were not made.
Hang on.
Okay.
There is no pension board meeting taking place right now, just to be perfectly clear.
Okay.
We're gonna call the regular board meeting back into session and move for that.
Okay,
Okay.
let's make a motion. We have a motion and I'll second that motion
Okay.
to call the regular board meeting back into session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And
this was previously approved.
I'm sorry, hang on.
back in-
We need to record Mr. Green's vote. Mr. Green,
I'm sorry, I was typing something. What was that vote on?
we motioned to bring regular board meeting back to session.
right, we can't have a special pension board meeting without notification.
Fine, aye.
Okay,
All right, August 22nd, or no, in August 2022, we had the pension board meeting, and we voted to do a raise for the pensioners that are on pension at this time. And the minute did not get written,
we've got the minutes,
but they're not in writing. We have to have it in writing,
right?
and it wasn't written in the minutes. Therefore, we have to either rewrite the minutes tonight or so I can get this submitted.
We.
I wasn't present in August. There's no recording of an August
Are you talking
meeting.
the August meeting? This is, the February meeting. The
In,
most recent pension board meeting, we voted for that raise.
That was in August.
it was discussed in this room in February. And I recall that we approved, I thought it was something like $5 per month increase. It was minimal. We discussed that the funding is there. We had
Right.
conversation about the longevity of funds. And so it was discussed. I can't find that recording. It may be blended
Yeah,
in.
no,
So
I have the February recording where we did vote on it. That's the meeting that we voted on the increase, Dave, this
Okay.
February meeting.
So August, we
And-
just discussed it.
Yeah, no, February, I just reviewed it myself.
Okay.
Remember, I told you that there's a very clear Zoom meeting of the February pension board meeting and.
is it in our Drive Zoom
Yeah,
file
I-
or is it posted to YouTube?
Yeah.
Because I didn't see it on our YouTube posting and I thought I had transitioned all Zoom files to YouTube. So that's why I couldn't find it to reproduce minutes.
Okay, whatever it was you sent out, there were like 6 little squares of meetings.
Okay,
I found it and I listened to it and I
Okay.
took notes. And then that's when I said, and you said, oh, I'll look at it and I'll make the minutes.
yeah, I should have come back to you. I didn't see it on the YouTube posting,
Okay.
but if it is going to be in the Drive, So it's saved there.
Clear as a bell.
Let's,
Well, good, and that's the one we need written up, so I
Okay,
can
can
get it
you-
submitted.
Okay, if we get those minutes electronically to you
Okay,
as soon as we can.
Or what motion could we just, whatever motion you need us to approve tonight, because it'll then be a part of these minutes as well. That prevents me from having to go watch if we do it tonight,
it's a separate board.
it has,
It has to be another board meeting.
okay.
Separate board.
I will get with Deb by Monday. And I will find the video, I will watch it, I'll produce the minutes in our new fashion, I'll distribute them as draft. You'll have a copy of that, and then we'll approve them at our next meeting, but they'll be drafted.
they're drafted, I think I can send them in.
Okay, by Monday, by end of business Monday, you'll have it.
Okay,
Is that good enough, Dave?
And then we should notice a special meeting before, a special pension board meeting before our next meeting, just so we can officially approve it, get it signed. Okay,
all right.
I think we'll get that, yeah.
That okay, Garrett?
Is that okay, Garrett? You understand? What you're talking about?
It was a mess, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Nice to see you, Garrett.
Thank you.
Dave, is that satisfying?
Well, I'd like to have it sooner, but because they're pushing me to get this because they got work to do on it too.
Right, okay,
As soon as possible by Monday, just with family commitments, but I will do the best I can to get it soon.
Weekend, that's very tied up. We'll get it to you as fast as we can.
Okay,
Okay,
Will they be there over the weekend? Possibly I can do it Saturday. That's the earliest I can do it.
well, Monday would be fine if I can get to them on Monday.
Okay, I'll get it to you Monday morning.
Okay.
all right, election update. As everyone has been notified on the website, thank you again, Garrett.
Thanks, Garrett.
Thanks, Garrett, bye. We did not have to hold an election. We had 2 positions open and 2 candidates running. Mara Rehas was one of them, and congratulations. Dave Primer is the other one, and congratulations.
Thank you.
We are going to, the election is May the 2nd. At our next our May board meeting, you will be sworn in, both of you. You can't be sworn in before the election. And then that has to be filed with the clerk of, it's not the clerk of courts, it's the city clerk. And then you'll be, all that NDOA and everything has to be notified, and the bonds and all these things have to be done. You will be seated at the June meeting. Okay. So congratulations to you both.
I hope so.
No, he's with us all the way through. Okay, attorney consultation update, that's Mr. Creech.
Yeah, there's no new information. But I want to just emphasize again, some of the communication that was relayed to me from our district's attorney. There have been some policy changes, some procedural changes, and you will continue to see resolutions presented to the board and to the community that are based on recommendations from the attorney that represents our district. Board members have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the district and the district assets. And when there are threats and challenges and problems that arise, we have to face those problems head on. And we're doing so in a way that has been legally advised. So the only update is, if you're troubled by this continual cycle of seeing new processes, new procedures voted on, new regulations approved, and censuring resolutions, we have been advised to do so to protect the district, and we're following our attorney's advice. That's all.
And how much did it cost to get that advice?
I don't know that I can give you a line item cost of what it took I can tell you what our last attorney bill was for, and it would be in our monthly transaction items. And
One of the questions I like to ask in these situations is, how much did the attorney consultation cost? But what is the risk to our district if we don't have that information?
yeah.
So that's just something to put out there.
Yeah, risk reward is definitely something that is part of that analysis, and I'm not going to immediately be able to find the statement. Do you have a requirement for me to get that to you now, or can I send it to you later? And the reason I say that is I could log into QuickBooks to see what our last payment to our attorney is, or it is listed on our, we made our last payment. We didn't have a bill in March. So I'm looking back through February items. I'll log into QuickBooks and get that information for you.
Do you need that today, or can we get it to you
Get
later?
it to you later.
It can come later. I just kind of curious on how you're spending district money, taxpayers' money on these lawyers, which I feel is unnecessary.
The first thing I would say is I'm not spending the money. The district is spending the money. We had a vote. The board voted to receive. Okay, so you said how I'm spending the money. I didn't spend the money. The district spent the money. I just wanted to make that as a clear point. I did not spend money on my own.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
So this is Glenn Denning, a resident. You're speaking very cryptically. For those of us who haven't been in previous meetings, I think you're referring to the behavior of board members and the resulting resolution to hire a lawyer to advise you. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So in answer to Dave's question, I think the correct response would be, it rose out of a board member's behavior. That's why we're spending the money, right? Is that not
So
right?
that's really the board member, yes, sir, that cost us that money.
Okay.
That individual cost us
So
that.
your question is kind of diverting from the issue, is the board brought this on themselves. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
In our February
Well,
28th.
The
Excuse
board
me.
brought this on because they wanted to maintain things secret.
Excuse me, I was speaking, I was answering a question. If you don't mind just letting me finish answering the question. In February, we paid $688.50 to CEGR Law. And there are additional items that are included with that. It looks to me that we were assessed 2 hours, 2.10 hours were charged for behavior regarding board behavior, conferences, meetings, discussions. And that probably equaled at a rate of, so the specific line item, it's hard for me to say exactly, but our professional services rendered in February were $688.50.
May I have a moment to speak?
About,
Yes or no?
Speak.
speak, what do you want to say?
Are you going to hire a lawyer to look at the fraudulent minutes you created? Yes or no?
Are
That's your
you
opinion.
making a motion?
If you would like to request that the board move to investigate something, then you can put forth a motion and
The
then
board won't investigate themselves, but the board has provenly created fraudulent minutes. You created them and you three voted on them.
I'd like to make one thing extremely clear right now. 3 people did not vote on the August 1st minutes. Dave Primer and I, excuse me, sir, I'm speaking. Dave Primer and I were excused from voting on the August 1st minutes because we were not board members at the time. You, Deb, and Niffy were the only voting board members.
Your minutes say you did though, Chris.
The minutes have been updated and corrected.
Point of order, hey, just move on. This is.
Don't like to talk about it. I understand, Niffy. I wouldn't want to talk about it if I were you either.
Okay, we're moving on. We've already dealt with the website transition. Is that correct?
Correct.
The email communication policy, just for clarification, we updated our email communication policy, was sent to all 5 board members for signature. 3 of the board members signed them and 2 did not. I do have copies of that email policy for anybody that would like to look at it. And it was voted on and passed.
Just to clarify, all district employees, so our chief and assistant chief has also signed the policy.
It was distributed pretty widely around the community by a board member before the vote took place, so.
Okay, under new business, Golden Gate Fire Protection District spending guidelines that you, Mr. Preach, did Kyle get into that or?
For procedural purposes, I'm sponsoring it. Kyle will present and we have an action to approve.
Okay, Kyle,
Okay, 1 second here. Let me grab it out of the background here. So as I kind of addressed a little bit during the chief's report, after purchasing the trucks and then going through some of our outdated policy manual, which we identified needs to have a revamp, from the get-go. One of the more important things that is missing as far as fiduciary responsibility to the fiscal responsibility for the district is a spending policy for myself, for the fire chief, for the board, and then also for the officers underneath me that would have a spending authorization. This does 2 things. It allows the officers to have spending authority for smaller items underneath $1,000 that kind of allows operations to keep going without having to have immediate authorization for any kind of spending that's needed. And also for board members for specific board items. And then it progressively increases for the assistant chief and then the chief. And then on the other side, it allows for or provides guidelines for bidding and for bid selection for larger purchases. And for, I don't know if you guys have that able to pull that up, but for the people who are in the audience, the guidelines are less than $1,000. No authorization is required for a board president, treasurer, chief, assistant chief, or officers. $1,000 to $2,500. No authorization is required for a board president, chief, or assistant chief. $2,500 to $5,000 is no authorization that's required for the chief. And then anything that's over $5,000 that would be of use of for district funds has to be approved by the fire board during a public meeting, and it requires a written business case for the purchase. And it must be presented during a public meeting. 2 bids are required unless we have exception with a written business case. And if the bids are differed by more than 15%, we look to try to get a 3rd bid, or sorry, additional 2 bids to make sure that we don't have any crazy outliers that we have captured in our initial bid pool. Let's see, we talked about the purchase must be approved by Golden Gate Fire Protection Board. And that's kind of the big thing that's there. Also on this, we're saying that the purchasing of used goods or parts for the good of the district. This is not purchase. This is purchase, not donation. Is basically is prohibited. It's strongly discouraged unless it's authorized by the board or the designee. This is just to make sure that we aren't spending money on things that are going to cause the district more headache or cost further down the line. And just making sure that we're maintaining the highest quality of materials that are being used to serve the community. Are there any other questions about this policy or why we're looking to implement this?
Can I?
Yes.
Meredith, Meredith Rehide. So I guess I'm wondering what was the trigger that brought this up? There must have been something going on. Maybe it's just good policy, but was there some event that?
There just hadn't been a policy.
Okay.
And I think it's just a good business operation sense to have something down.
Yeah, in the first, introduction of Kyle into the district, he asked me a lot of questions about his authority, and I had no reference point. I had no documentation to go back in and say, this is what we're doing. So Kyle presented to me other district spending policies and recommended that we take a good look at it. We balanced it together. I looked at previous spend, so that way we were really careful to make certain that in an emergency or for utilities and things like that, there's no jeopardization of this district policy. And so it was more identified by Chief Benson that we had, what can he do? So that's what triggered it.
It's so Meredith, just to kind of answer the question a little bit more directly. When we went through the purchase of the vehicles, I went looking for this policy, which is standard for most districts, and couldn't find one. And it was kind of an immediate identification of a policy that needed to be put in place to move forward in good faith for, spending district funds that are provided by taxpayers.
Great.
So historically, the reason the firefighters a long time ago used to have their own account and they could spend their own money. And there was policies and things around that. A couple of boards ago, it was recommended that they not have that just because of 501c3 requirements or something. So they had to put it all together. Then the board before me, I think they decided that the budget itself was restrictive. And so you really couldn't go, whatever that line item was, you couldn't go over that anyway. The bylaws does have an amount in there for going out to bids. And we even lowered that several, like last year, I think.
I have a question. Would you review the bylaws that are posted online and validate that those are current? And the reason I say that is it seems like every meeting I have to reread the bylaws to deal with issues. And I don't recall seeing a spending limitation that requires that. So if we don't have up-to-date bylaws posted, I would really like.
Sure, I saw it in there. So I'll look at the one that I have.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Is this requiring a motion?
I motion that we adopt the spending policy.
Second,
Okay. Any questions?
any discussion further?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Steve? Okay. Passes. Thank you, Kyle and Chris.
No problem.
Okay. Budget resolution, Mr. Creech.
I'm going to take a few minutes to introduce the budget resolution that I have presented. It has been distributed to the community. First, I'd like to make certain that individuals know if you send an email to my personal email address with comments, they're not part of the official record. If you want your information and your comments to be a part of the board's official records, please forward them to my board email address or other board members' email address. There's a reason why I introduced this process, and just for everyone's knowledge, there's no action item being taken tonight. This is a discussion. It's being presented as a discussion with the hopes that the community would provide input. The basic concept of the budget resolution is we have a chief, our CEO, a firefighter that leads all of our firefighters, and we only say they need to work 10 hours a week. We have seen the direct result of that challenge in that our chief has obligations outside of our district that he must maintain for his family's financial situation. And that puts our district at harm. The resolution is a spend resolution, but it's not just a raise, it's an increase in responsibility. And there are targets and specific measurable items that we can use to qualify whether the spend is worth what we're going to be doing. For instance, we just heard tonight that through the efforts of our chief, we've received $90,000 in donations. It wasn't in my board tenure, which started in December, interim chief Enright presented to us purchasing options to buy radios. We needed radios. We need radios. We no longer have to spend the money on the radios because the efforts of an individual that is focused on improving our district has given us that. Bear fire. I'm at home. It's a Saturday night. I'm sure all of you, as soon as you heard of the bear fire, were as plugged in as you needed to be to make certain that you're safe, our district is safe. I did receive a phone call from our chief, and I can't express the concern that I heard in his voice that the reputation that he has and the fact that he could not be here for that fire. He expressed to me that he called 6 levels of operational firefighters in Nederland to relieve him. He could not leave. He could not be here. We've hired a chief to keep our district, our community, our assets safe. We've hired a chief to better our district, and we've handcuffed him with very limited hours. There are concerns that the pay may be too much. You can go to any other fire district's websites. You can look at their budgets for their chiefs. This is in line with what other chiefs are making. The only difference in what other chiefs are making is we're still handcuffing him if we eventually approve an increase in his hours, because he's not going to be a full-time chief. He'll still be part-time. The 24 hours that would be worked would increase firefighter protection in our district during a time frame when we have very few volunteers. During that 9 to 5 hours, our volunteers are in their permanent jobs. They're not available to support our district.
I've read this, so I'm just excusing myself.
Understood. We would improve response times. We would improve neighborly relations. In my tenure as a chief, I have talked with in my tenure on the board, I'm not a chief. In my tenure on the board, I have talked to chiefs of other fire districts. And while this is not official statements, no chief will go on the record of saying things. We're the stepchild. We're this district that doesn't do as much as we can to protect ourselves. We rely on other districts, and all districts do. Every fire district in Jefferson County has mutual aid, auto aid agreements, but we are looked at as this district that's not trying to help ourselves, we're relying on other districts to help us. And reputationally speaking, I just don't think that's good business for our district. Having a chief that can focus his time and his attention on our district does nothing but better our district. So there is, again, more responsibilities, and there is an increase in pay. You've seen in the Treasury report, we have the money. We do not need to increase anybody's tax obligation to pay for the chief. If we went in this direction, it would pay for itself in the fact that a chief that is dedicated to receiving more grants will receive monies for things that we're currently spending on. As an example, we don't need to buy radios any longer. We have them. $90,000 in spend has already been recovered. If he's able to focus his attention on applying for additional grants, some of our additional spend on things can go away, so we spend on a person.
I don't know how to tighten these.
Tighten the ground.
Okay, all right.
You got it.
There we go.
So I've presented this for conversation, and I would hope that every single board member takes this seriously. We are not the district that we were 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. The concerns of our district are present today. And we need to start thinking forward and not backwards in regards to how we hire and what we do with the staffing in our district. The resolution is there for modification, for ratification, and thank you.
Comments from the public?
I've got a question. Glenn Denning, is the effect of this resolution that the chief would dedicate all of his time as a fire department volunteer or employee to Golden Gate, or are we still be putting some of his time toward Netherlands?
I'll answer that question first, and then I'll ask Chief Benson to qualify. For family financial circumstances, Chief Benson has to maintain an income stream. He has to maintain his presence at Netherland unless we are able to take that financial. If we move in this direction, he will leave Netherland. He will no longer be on shift at Netherland. I don't know if he'll maintain a volunteer on call, but this frees him from having to focus his attention on another fire district. Chief Benson?
Sure, I could answer that or speak to that, I guess. So, you know, a move like this by the fire district essentially establishes a job, not just for me, but in general for the fire district that is sustainable for a fire chief, for myself or for someone else as their main source of employment. Obviously, it's still a 24-hour part-time job, but we're talking about a position that has the ability to carry benefits and allows someone to be able to focus their fire service time here. My intention would be to help Netherland on an as requested basis, but it would basically relieve me of an obligation of being on shift, which I am currently required to do on that 4896 schedule. And allows me or another chief in the future to be able to focus their time and effort onto the success of Golden Gate.
I have a couple of questions about that, Kyle. While on shift at Netherland, have you found yourself in a position of having to work for our district?
Yeah, I mean, as you guys can maybe tell, I'm actually on shift right now, which has caused, unfortunately, a little bit of difficulty here within the fire district as well, just based off of some of the time constraints that have occurred between the two districts.
And we've listed on, and you and I have talked about the hours specifically. Do you feel like you would be working more than 24 hours? And I'll use an example as today, I believe you spent a good hour of your time talking to on a request for dispatch from other agencies focused on our district. But that's outside of what we even have you working today. So do you feel like you would be providing more than 24 hours worth of direct services to our district, even though it's listed as 24 hours? A week.
I'm sure that's probably true. Obviously the target would be to do 24 hours, but as things arise within the fire district, it's the fire chief's legal obligation to take care of them. And thankfully I have a great team, but I at this point, I would think that's probably definitely a yes.
Thank you.
No offense to Chief Kyle. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, no offense, Chief Kyle. Kyle, you're a great guy and all, but when you were hired, you did agree not to seek, because we hired you at the top of the pay scale, not to seek increased wages, but I'm not saying you sought them, but it sounds like Chris Creech sought them for you right in the first 2 weeks.
That's false.
Yeah, I speak, or do you guys want to interrupt me?
Go ahead.
So I just want to make that comment because that was an agreement. Do you remember, Kyle? I'm sure you do, because we spoke about it.
As a board
And
member,
then,
that did not happen. That's false.
no, it's not. We hired you at 3,000 a month and I asked, you're not going to seek an increase right away, are you? So it's not false, Niffy. Dave will remember it. If he doesn't, well, I do.
Oh, excuse me.
No, I'm still
Not
speaking.
just An increase for the exact terms that.
Excuse me, I'm speaking. You can't speak right now.
Not to.
No, Niffy, I'm sorry. It's still I still have this.
If he will have 10 minutes to rebut anything that Mr. Green says.
I still also say there's only 75 calls or 80 a year when you take out the false alarms. And Chris Creech represented our district as having changed so much. But we have a district which has a lot of area and very few residents. And it hasn't changed that much. There's been some houses built, but there haven't been that many houses like Chris kind of spun it right there. So I don't agree with Chris's speech. Go ahead, I'm done.
You finished?
That's what I said, yes.
I would like to reserve the opportunity to speak. However, I wanted to make a direct comment about what Steve said. There was no written agreement at all about what Chief Benson would seek as far as his compensation.
Not written, I never said written.
Okay, there was a verbal agreement where he said he wouldn't seek for the exact hours, exact terms, further compensation. That is far and away different from saying I will double the amount of work I'm doing for more pay. Those are completely different things. I just want to make sure that conflating those doesn't make this man appear as if he's being a liar or being dishonest with this district.
I'm not saying anything about that to Kyle Niffy. I'm saying about you, maybe.
I'd like to take.
The advertisement you put out for the pay scale, that's what he applied for.
Right.
Okay.
We all agree to that. Yeah.
We're
That's
increasing
what he was
the
talking about.
We're increasing the
But back when, even though it was 20 years ago, I was all the way up to assistant chief once and I didn't receive anything. But we only had about 30 calls a year back in the 90s, 80s and 90s. I retired in 02. But we were up and down the scale. I worked 2 jobs and did it. And I didn't complain about the hours that I put in on the fire department. Even in 98, I got top call for the top responder for the year. So I don't see where with 100 and we're like 100 calls right now, we were taking whatever it is. I don't see an increase in demand.
What has changed?
There's a lot of paperwork.
What has changed is time has moved forward, and we cannot deny that climate change is having a huge effect all across the country. That the conditions are so much more dangerous now. So much more dangerous. Look at the number of red flag warnings every day that are going up. And we can't put our heads in the sand about that. It doesn't matter that we haven't maybe expanded with more, many more houses. What matters is the people that are here need to be safe.
And you have to do something for yourself as well.
Absolutely, medication, yeah, absolutely. You know that. So that's what, that's why we're looking at this. We have a young man that's highly qualified, absolutely motivated. And he wants to do more for us, and he can't do more if he's only going to have him 10 hours a week.
I predict you'll be using ballot issue A very soon. To raise our taxes.
So I'm going to take my second round of discussion. First off, Mr. Member, thank you for all of your prior service. End of story.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. This side I don't enjoy.
You don't have to do this.
That's right.
What we heard, I think, is the sentiment that most people have. We're talking about our district from 98 or 88 or whatever year it was that volunteers were not paid. That doesn't happen anymore. That we can't keep looking back. I agree that we may not have high call volume. It is not the last call that matters. It is the next call that matters. I have said that at every single board meeting that I have sat here. When we talk about, do we get one call or do we get 100 calls? That next call might be your child, your spouse, your significant other in a wreck in a time when we don't have coverage. It's the next call that matters. Are we as a district better off having a chief that spends more time focused on our district or not? And I don't believe anybody can say that we are better off by having a chief that works fewer hours. That's it. Period. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
keep it within reason.
Yeah, I've got a question. This is Glenn Denning. Chief, did I understand you right that you proposed a budget item that would provide for the maintenance and replacement of vehicles?
There's no proposed budget item. The firefighters are working on what is called an apparatus replacement plan. So it's essentially a plan that moves forward, looking at the ages of apparatus, the costs it requires for the maintenance of each apparatus, and creates a plan moving forward for those apparatus to be replaced by the district.
Okay, and is that the first time this district has ever done that activity?
I can't speak specifically to that, but it's the first that I've seen.
Okay,
Yes.
so one of the benefits of having a professional paid chief that we could retain would be that type of planning, which would be the most basic function I would expect of even a unpaid volunteer fire department. It never happened until now.
I can, well, that's not entirely true.
It's not entirely true. Well,
No, there were tables presented at various meetings in the past, and then the committee that this is Mara, the committee that I served as a member of the community on to look at passport for the fire district. And we had all that information and how old the equipment was and how much it was costing to fix and that sort of thing. So we had a way to look at what we owned and what needed to get replaced first.
And then
But a plan, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a plan.
We just bought 2 trucks last meeting.
then every year, we would plan for the next budget year and decide, looking at that list, which piece of equipment needed to be replaced or that we needed to budget for.
And just also as a point of reference, because of the comment, what may or may not have happened. If you look at the budget resolution, one of the tangible target items that we can hold Chief Benson accountable for is SWOT analysis by the end of this year. So when we talk about, are we giving him more? We're getting more, right? So these types of things are actionable, they're measurable, and they're specifically mentioned in the resolution. So we will get this SWOT analysis, and I believe it's specifically dated to be by December 31st. So a 5-year study and a 5-year plan is planned for by the end of Q1 or Q2. So these items that any district would normally do, they're in this plan specifically.
In your resolution.
In the resolution, correct. I want to, and thank you. I know that there are 2 comments. I want to say something about a side comment about ballot A. We do not need to raise taxes for this expenditure. There is $14,000 that needs to come from some other line item. We have already approved the chief's budget. We allocated additional funds when our IGA with Timberline went away. We had previously approved an administrative assistant position, and the chief will be taking on those responsibilities. We come short for the next 12 months of $14,000. We have 174% in reserve funding. No taxes need to be increased in order for this district to fund this, period. The concept that this is going to be a ballot A issue, ballot A can only be used if our revenue drops from Jefferson County. This has nothing
true.
to do with ballot A.
That's not true.
Um,
And I,
We have a, Terry?
Yeah, I have a question on this resolution, draft. Is it 78,000? Does that include the compensation package, you know, workman comp, et cetera?
It's a great, yes, this is full compensation. This is not salary plus. That is the total spend. And there are some parts of that are salary. There are some parts that would include, is it life insurance, Mr. Benson? You could maybe answer that, but it is total compensation, not salary plus.
And so when
It would
I
be, it includes the contributions to FPPA to maintain a chief's pension coming from another district. It includes an FSA, so not health insurance, but an FSA that helps pay for health insurance costs. And then I think the only other benefit that was in there was AD&D and the cost of a district or a cell phone, which is required for district use.
Thank you, Chief. Then a follow-up question on that too. As I'm reading these, it certainly looks like it's something that you're going to pay for yourself with the work that you're going to do. And I don't see this as a raise. I see this as an increase in hours. So I just hope that's very clear. I don't think this is a raise the way this is written. An increase in hours, and I would support this.
Meredith? Just one quick comment, and I'm not by a long shot the oldest resident of this district, 45 years. There's a tremendous difference in this district. Yeah, we're not building houses at the rate they're building them in Lakewood or out to the airport or whatever, but the houses that are being built are very spendy, a lot of them, very spendy. And that alone changes the character of the district. Can't help but do it, you know? I don't live in a house like that, but but a lot of people do now. So that not only requires personal responsibility on the part of the landowner, but it requires the district to step up a little bit too. So. Sheila, did you want to say something?
Well, I was gonna say that if the chief, if this does get approved and he's working on a SWOT analysis, as part of that committee that I was on and that Meredith was on, we did pretty extensive comparisons and data gathering. We did a SWOT analysis for the district, and that was on that report was on the website and it was distributed pretty widely. So you might want to look at that.
So one of those things that disappeared, like.
Yeah.
So.
And then the other thing I wanted to say
I have
is,
it on my computer.
Yeah, I think
So
I-
some new things just like disappeared from the website, and I'm like, where are, like, and everyone knows they exist, they're just not on the website. It's frustrating to me.
and then the other thing I wanted to say real quickly is Meredith and I, and some of us in the room remember that we've had a number of chiefs that weren't even paid in the past and worked a lot of hours. But since then, the training requirements have changed for all of the firefighters. And for somebody to manage all of that without being paid and without putting in the number of hours where you have to track all the training and make sure that they have it and all of the paperwork that's required, I think we've been lucky to get by with a part-time chief that's been willing to dedicate and go well over the hours that we paid them for in the past. So I certainly would support this as well.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Patty?
Yeah, I think one of the things we all look at is property, but lives are what are an issue here. I mean, Sam's got to know this. We have one EMT in the district, and a heart attack has a very short amount of time that you can do something about it before huge damage is done. Strokes, if you don't get people out. If you have an accident and you have bleeding, if you don't have somebody that can get there, that knows what to do and how to handle it, you're talking life and death situations. And yeah, Dave, you and I were on the fire department together.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a volunteer situation. We didn't get paid. It was a neighbor to neighbor thing. We did a lot of things that were good, but there's more traffic in this community now. There's more park stuff. There's more people going through Golden Gate Canyon. And frankly, a good part of us are aging, Cameron.
Patty, you were an EMT for the district.
Yeah, and at that time, I think we had 4 or 5 EMTs in the district at that point.
Yeah, we did.
We're gonna get some more.
And right now, right, we need somebody to get in there and encourage people to go take the EMT training and to push for the firefighter 1 and the firefighter 2. We need these people to really know what they're doing. And Dave, we did our damnedest.
I'd be glad of the more traffic. It slows everybody down.
I wish they slowed down when we try to walk. Yeah, we live just short of the entrance to White Ranch open space. We literally try to time our walks because we know there's a large walking group that drives up on Wednesday mornings, and we know the times that you don't dare try to get out on the road. And that's not the way it was. When we moved up here, Crawford Gulch wasn't paved, much less Belcher Hill. And so,
I got to watch the shelf road down here be widened twice and then paved.
yeah. So, it's a different thing. And I think the district has grown incredibly. Incredibly, since we moved here. We've been here 27 years and the difference is unreal. So I can't say strongly enough how much I want this man in our district. And frankly, I wouldn't give him 24 hours, I'd give him 40. So there you go.
Okay, anybody else have comments?
Do you have a time frame on this?
That's something that the board needs to discuss what our actions items are from the discussion. What I would propose, and I don't know if it is required for motion, is that community members give us input. We'll discuss operationally how we publish that input. I will say personally that depending on the input that comes in, any modifications, changes, or requests, it will be an action item to be voted on at the latest our next meeting, or if necessary, I will call a special meeting sooner. And some of you may be thinking, what's this rush? I have heard people say, let's let this guy work for 6 months and see what his performance levels are. We have a rising star as a chief that there are other fire chief positions that are open today that this chief could go to. And as a fact, today, Netherlands' permanent chief position is now open for application. So we can continue to say, let him perform later and let's revisit it, or we can take action to retain and prevent his need. If anybody in a job that has upper mobility is looking for a step up, and he could easily leave our district. 10 hours over here or go get paid 40 hours somewhere else. Where do you think it might lead? So is there a sense of urgency in my request? Yes, there is. Just hands down, right? I have believed from what I have learned in my 2 short years living in this district that we have found a diamond in the rough. I've heard the complaints of prior chiefs. I've heard the turnover rate of our chiefs. And we have an opportunity to really capture top talent and grow our district. And that's why I believe this should be happening as soon as possible.
So, when I moved up here, I expected that if I called 911, no one was coming. And I'll tell you, when I moved up here, my wife was 8.5 months pregnant. My daughter was born 2 weeks after I moved into my house. I planned all the routes. I was like, here's how I'm gonna go. Like, I'm gonna make sure I'm getting plenty of sleep and be ready to drive to the hospital if there was ever an emergency. I never assumed that anyone was coming to help me. That might have been short-sighted. That might have been silly. That isn't necessarily the way that this community has to be served just because it's rural and small. Things can change. And I can be an advocate for that change. Part of when I ran, I had a very short candidate statement. One of the things that I wrote was fiscal responsibility. And it'll be very important to me that if we are ever increasing the salary or increasing our budget, that is something the community votes on. What has been very important to me in reading this proposal is that a number of these items are revenue neutral and cost neutral. They are line items that already exist, and we are just reallocating them. Well, we're not reallocating them. We're having him take on those duties that we had cost items in. I also really feel strongly that if he can offset costs, like if we have allocated a certain amount of money for buying new trucks and he gets them for half the price, well, shoot, maybe he should reap some of that reward. Well, we can do some revenue sharing between the district and what he's able to come up with. This current proposal, I do believe, has a couple things in it that we shouldn't remove. And, reserve expenditure, there are special budget lists. There's some things there where, like, I want to be very certain that if we are reallocating something, we are not cutting off our nose to spite our face. Making sure that whatever we are like moving money around for makes sense. That is why that Timberland IGA was just an easy decision. He's now doing the job that they were supposed to do. Give him the money for it. Easy decision. Those things are really easy for us to come up with. I want us to be smart about this. And I think there's no doubt that, having been on the hiring committee, that I love this guy. And I think we really want him around for a long time. He's, around my age, a little bit younger than I am as kids at my age, or my daughter's age. So I want us to discuss this as a community, and I want to see a groundswell of support. And so please go talk to your neighbors and have them email in so that we can say, yes, this is a community-driven decision. And then we could potentially, when we're putting ballot A on the election in November, we can also put a line item in there saying, we want to raise our taxes in order to keep this chief on full time. Let our community decide. Right now, I could totally be in favor of making sure that we take something that is revenue neutral and cost neutral and allocating that to our chief. It doesn't make any sense not to do that. Like, it doesn't hurt us at all to do that. But we also need to make sure that we give him the surety that that'll last well into the future. So that's kind of my opinion and thoughts on this.
For the people listening and us, repeat how to submit your comments on this issue.
Please just send an email to the board@goldengatefire.org. Works, and all the board members with accounts will receive that information.
Oh, can I clarify? If they're outside of our network and they send to board, I think it rejects.
It rejects it, does
I
it?
believe it does. On our website,
Send it to any member.
Send it to
any member.
Yes.
Only 3 board members will receive those comments.
Because you didn't sign anything.
So I would make a motion, or we can discuss the fact that every comment received can be publicly posted. We could create a Google form that allows open and transparent commenting. So you individually have chosen not to sign an email communication policy, but we can easily find ways to get these comments into your hands through public posting.
If you all remember the wedding venue stuff, all of those comments got posted and they were open to the public. So we'll find a way to do a similar exercise.
I have a question. Since the board's not taking an action tonight, and is deferring to this public input. And it's known, based on what Chris said, that the Netherlands chief's position is open. Does the board have a position with Kyle that says if he is interested in taking the Netherlands board because it is attractive and appears better to him, do you have an agreement with him that this board will meet and make a decision on the resolution tonight as his alternative option to stay with us, rather than just spending time collecting inputs, which I agree are valuable from the community, but this is the easiest no-brainer decision I have seen in 27 years. So waiting another month while Kyle is potentially negotiating with Netherlands for a chief position puts your proposition at risk. So you need to consider, what is your arrangement with Kyle?
I agree with you, and that's why I've discussed the sense of urgency. We have
I
time.
agree the urgency. I just want to make sure in an agreement with Kyle that it appears that his offer from Netherlands is attractive and he is ready to sign it before this board has voted on the proposition, that you are given an opportunity to respond post haste.
Could we set public comment timeframe?
A special meeting, those are options that we could do. I will just say personally, we can't compete with the salary and the offer from Netherlands, no matter what. That's not an option. So if he gets awarded that, he's likely going to take it.
No, you misunderstood.
You're saying first right of refusal if he gets the offer.
Yeah.
He may choose to accept a lesser financial offer from this board than going to Netherlands if you put it in writing. I am not suggesting by what I said that you're supposed to, he's going to negotiate with you, and if his salary offer is better than 74,000, that you have to raise your proposition to meet it.
Chief Benson, would you like to make any comments? I know that you and I have specifically talked at length about that very topic. Do you have any comments that you would like to make?
No, and I definitely want to make one clarification, because I do know we have some, quite a few public listening. I do not currently have an offer from Netherlands Fire Protection District for a chief position. The chief position is going to be opened. I do believe that the board of directors finished the job description for publication yesterday. But it is an option for me to move forward with application and going through that process. But it is not something that's been offered to me. I just want to make sure that's very clear. As far as competitiveness, I think, I definitely I can just say this with like my true heart. I definitely believe in the future of Golden Gate and the things that can be done with Golden Gate Fire Protection District and the steps that need to be taken to move forward. And I think, I can be dedicated to that. I think that's really all I can speak to as far as, the difference between the two agencies. I will say this as well, I'm not trying to toot, I guess, my own horn here, but as someone who's qualified as myself, I get, emails every day recruiting me for different positions all around the country. And so that's just something that's part of, where I am certified in the fire service and, where the job position I currently hold. And I think that, like I said, I really see the future in Golden Gate, and would be very, very honored to be able to take that next step with the district, and help, secure the future of the fire chief position.
Gary, did you want to say something?
I'm just curious, or can we look at a 2-week timeline to accumulate these names and then have a resolution reviewed in 2 weeks? I'm just trying to throw a date out, a timeline. Or even 1 week,
It's
or
tight.
It would take them a month to get a new chief hired up there.
Yeah,
So you don't have to rush that much.
yeah.
Kind of like going out and buying a car when you have to have one. You don't want to.
I also want to make sure that we get a lot of public comment. I know public comment isn't the same thing as a vote, but just because I agree with something, I'm here to represent the entire district. And so there are strong opinions on a number of different issues here. I don't think that this one should be controversial, but I want to just make sure that we are getting public comment and input. So,
Maybe a month is a reasonable limit then. I mean,
well, let's do 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks
And then we have a week to
Yeah.
collate and get everything together before a meeting and, put together a resolution.
That would work good.
Okay.
So are
Put
we,
that on your website so that when
Yes.
people go make comments, they know what the period is and what's gonna happen.
Yes, we'll get all of that taken care of and we'll have, the newsletter we'll send out to the people that are signed up. Hey, this is happening. And all a number of people have email lists. There's DMRA, there's Steve's list. So people can get this published and.
so just, so what have we said that we have a 3-week period, 2 week for open comment?
Yeah.
We'll schedule a May 11th.
Well, we'll just do it at the next board meeting. I
Okay,
think just on a regular meeting.
so then public comment should be open up until the time of that.
Yeah.
Well, we need a period to collate that.
Yeah.
Get it all up on the website, start looking at it and make any sort of changes to this. I'd also want to make sure that we understand exactly what the budget line items are, because some of these, I'm just like, hey, is that money we're gonna have every year? Why would we be getting rid of a reserve expenditure? I know we have 400 grand in the bank, but like keep this line item here or something like that. So that's just kind of where I am. So I want to make sure that we're doing it right.
As far as the public comment goes, just a few of the concerns that I have. Are we saying that we're only going to accept an email as a public comment? Because we have no other source to publicly post on our website. So is our option to receive public comment via email?
We can do Google Forms. Where someone could submit and they should list their name and, potentially their address and just say, hey, I'm a district member. And that can auto collate everything for us and put it on the website.
And with that, is there a way to prevent what you could call spamming or an individual post many times under different names that's why I almost think emails could be posted. I don't know enough about Google.
Between Julie and I, we have the skill set to identify when that's happening.
Okay, so IP addresses will be, et
You're
cetera.
not supposed to say that because then someone's going to go use an IP spoof.
Yeah, I just,
We'll work out the details. Patty, did you have something?
Yeah, and then this is, this district has had a lot of controversy over all the years. And there has been a good bit of damage done in the community that makes some people really hesitant to come forward. And I am really concerned about how much response you're actually going to get. I've talked to a few people in the last few days. And there is a real concern for being a can't think of the right word, victim of of harassment. And unfortunately, that has been an issue for enough years in this community that a lot of people, when you mention fire department, they draw back. They pull out of the conversation because they don't want to be because they're concerned about repercussions.
But not asking for feedback is just,
I know.
it's got bad and maybe worse, so.
Let's just see what.
No, I think we should ask for it, Mara, definitely, but I think getting people to come forward is really difficult.
I
Really,
don't think over something like this, I just can't imagine that it would be an issue. This is for the benefit of everybody.
that well.
And right now, we're trying to make it revenue neutral. It's not gonna cost anybody any more money. That's the intent. So I don't see why it should be controversial. I would hope not. And I also know that, and this is personal to me, because I'm new here and I got tricked into being on the board.
You too?
I sent you apology.
I guess you have been.
Was she responsible for you too?
I didn't say. But there have been times where the pressure from certain elements of the community and the things that they have said to me have really gotten under my skin and make me fear for the safety of my family. And through encouragement from a number of people, you know, bullies will continue to bully if you don't stop them. They will continue to bully if you don't stop them. And we have to speak out and for what we believe in. And we don't have to agree on everything. Dave and I don't agree on shit other than hunting. And the fact that he's a good guy, I agree on that. So we've got to be able to care about ourselves and our community and speak out about that. So that's
I
what I'll say
hope
about
we
that.
can engender that attitude in the community.
Nobody has anything else.
Yeah, I think she's trying to suggest anonymous comments. You could collate comments without identifying the source. The
No,
board can reserve that information so that any particular name isn't associated with any
We
particular
will,
comment.
I think there's no issue with redacting the actual names of the people, but we will want the people to identify themselves in that, and then we will publish the information anonymously.
I would hope that the board would not be a source of threats or
You would hope.
retribution.
You would hope.
Is that correct? Can anybody assure me of that?
I will not.
I can assure you, I will not harass anyone further.
We can pass a resolution that this information is confidential as far as the identities of the individuals and that there can be legal repercussions for violating that privacy.
Amen.
That's all we can do.
You might need to do that right now.
Okay.
If
Yes.
the information is confined to the board and there should be an incident, then I think we'd know where to look. Is that right?
Yes, you would.
Yes, you can.
yes,
Thank you.
and then the refrigerator.
Yes. Okay, so I move that the information collected will be, have a name attached to it. However, when published, it will be private. And the dissemination of any of that information without full board approval will carry the strictest legal and civil punishment that we are able to levy against that individual.
Second,
Any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
I abstain.
The,
Unless that's actually-
Steve abstains.
I mean, this is,
Okay, moving
a
on.
lot of us have
You
been.
want, Chris, you want to deal with the resolution?
Yes. Yes.
It's getting, the hour goes late.
That's okay. I think the last order of business is there's a resolution to censure board member Steve Green. Many of you are probably already aware that board member Green using taxpayer public assets, gambled and made a bet. And if that does not violate laws, statutes, regulations,
funny.
it's certain. I'm speaking, sir. It certainly violates our district's bylaws. A normal, ordinary, prudent person would not publicly place a bet from a position of a board member. So this resolution that is written
You should go to the
to
Iran
disavow.
Soviet Union.
Mr. Green, I'm speaking, sir. You will have a chance to speak. The resolution is to disavow and to censure and disavow and strongly disapprove of that behavior. This is an example of where a board needs to protect itself from other board members because of the appearance of gambling with public taxpayer assets. This resolution has been distributed. The two emails were attached that were sent to Terry. Mr. Green himself has widely pushed those out to anybody who listens to him. So you all have seen the
Threatened
emails.
to hurt me, huh? And so did
Mr.
Nick.
Green, I am speaking, sir.
Yeah,
I'm
well-
going to
well, I
continue.
don't- I don't know
I'm going to
physically
mute you now. I'm going to continue speaking, sir. You will have 10 minutes. If you interrupt me, I will mute you. So the resolution is put out there to censure, disavow this behavior. I'm finished with my discussion. I have unmuted you, sir.
There you go. Your bullshit is incredible.
Is that the beginning of
And your censorships are meaningless. It's all because you want to collect people's taxes without their permission. That's what it's about.
Anything else?
There are no more comments. I motion the board approve resolution number 2023-20.4.
Second that. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed. Opposed.
Terry should pay me the $100 since she was spreading false information.
The motion passes. Did you want to vote, Mr. Green, or abstain?
I vote nay. And Deb, you know that threatening you was purely false and you made that up. Because you didn't represent all the emails. You picked and chose. The
I'd
only
like to
person
motion
who's
to
been
end
threatened here is myself.
on the agenda.
End of
The
conversation.
only person who's been threatened.
And actually, the session that is closed, so.
Motion,
once we get to Terry's,
motion.
discussion's done.
Resolution 2023-20-04 passes.
I'd like to read one public comment. Pat Cersey has posted to the chat and the direct comment is, Steve, please be precise about what is incorrect about what Chris said.
That's in reference to ballot issue A. Where you were waxing on poetically how it doesn't allow anybody to raise taxes like you to raise taxes. That's not true. And you know it because the lawyers have said that. I believe that's what Mr. Searcy's talking about.
Mr. Searcy, was your question answered? Mr. Searcy, could you unmute? Would you like to be unmuted, Mr. Searcy? You can ask your question.
He responded that, no, I am not talking about ballot A, is the response from Mr. Searcy.
We'll have to be more accurate because I don't know what Pat's talking about.
Well, you claim to have said that something that Chris mentioned was incorrect.
No, I was referring to ballot issue A.
Okay.
Oh. No, when I made a bet with Terry out of a form of speaking I said, come on, don't spread rumors at the Grange. I'll bet you $100, listen to the tape. It wasn't a real bet, although if she had listened to the tape, she would have lost.
We already
We
like.
have order,
censored
we've
you for
already-
I know, Niffy, you got the whole thing under control, don't you? But not the community. Community doesn't believe you. Some of them do, not all of them.
All right, moving on to public comment. Anybody? I know, I know, we're done. Next,
One thing,
Hold on.
Dave.
it's obvious we need to reorganize this Golden Gate Fire Protection Board in May. When the new people get sworn in, the president board is not functioning properly. Please take the next month to take an honest look at the minutes for the last 6 months. We cannot continue to have 3 people on the board blocking the other 2. When this board took over, we was in good interim chief in place, a surplus of 300,000, thanks to the good old boys. And mutual aid at low call district, 3 people on the board. Let's miss that. 3 people called district order. There are 3 people on the board. Fire department experience. I lost my place. No fire department experience. Decided they had to reinvent the wheel. What happened was resolutions and censorships validates that waste our time.
It's true.
Yep. None come to ask me for any advice. Blocking me from the official email was not necessary. There could have been amendment solution. Minutes should be brief and civil. All board positions will be reconsidered at the next meeting. The statement needs to be put in the minutes verbatim. I have asked. Look, that's all.
Whose comments?
I think that's your personal comment, is that right?
That's my personal comment.
Can I ask you, I know that we're not supposed to have rebuttal and whatnot in public comment session. Would you consider signing the email policy? You haven't done anything that would violate that email
I
policy.
know.
Why didn't you sign
I
it?
haven't signed it. It's written very poorly, and I don't have to answer to you people. I only answer to God and one special little lady over here, and this is.
You answer to the public and to the rest.
I'll comment. This is Glenn Denning. You answer to me. And what I heard tonight was that you and Steve didn't receive some documents that you would have needed to review to participate in this meeting. I suppose that's because you didn't get email?
No, I got them.
You said you
Without
didn't.
without having a fire
You
department.
said you didn't get them. I mean, you.
I don't get them.
There's other documents that I haven't been receiving.
Okay, so I think there's workarounds for that. Email could go outbound to you without you being able to send stuff in. But it sounds to me like.
Who's
you're-
speaking?
This is Glenn Denning, Steve.
Who? I don't know who it is. I can't recognize it.
He's my neighbor.
You don't, I don't know you.
I haven't met you yet.
I don't know your name though.
Glenn Denny.
Can I get an old Denny?
No. So to continue my comment,
Somebody say the name of who's speaking, please.
Glenn Dipping.
Got it?
Verbal audio.
Okay.
Go ahead, Glenn.
so
Continue. I can't.
the gist of my comment is you are responsible to us. And if you can't participate in the email system that's set up for you, then how do you execute your duties?
Oh, they want me.
Sign the.
No, they can't do it for you. You have to participate equally.
I'm here, I'm here.
But you didn't come prepared tonight. You didn't have the documents that were distributed by email. I heard you say that. I heard
You
Steve.
want an answer? Mr. Denny, do you want an answer?
I guess you can comment too. I'm done.
This board has taken public business and made it confidential and private. They've asked us to sign an email that says we're not allowed to tell the public what they're talking about. I won't sign that.
The email policy resolution is very public. Mr. Green has sent it out to his email list.
It's published on our
It's published
website.
On our website.
Yeah, but the emails are not being shared with all board members. Ever since the three of you have staged a coup d'etat. And you're hurting the community by doing it.
Okay, let's move on.
Any further public comment? Anything online? Pat Cersey did say that the resolution was based on a falsehood, just as was the one regarding the accusation that Steve threatened Deb. I'm confused about which, are you talking about the resolution about using public funds?
The bet.
The bet. It is widely held that when you work for a public entity, if you use anything that is funded by that public entity in contravention of their rules, you are using money, public funds, to violate the law. That
But
is.
what about making up minutes, Nippy? What about lying in the minutes that you created? That's the biggest, worst egregious thing I've ever seen on this board. Fictitious creation of minutes. Provable with certified transcripts.
All right, I think we're done.
We're done. The next regular board meeting is May 18th, 7 o'clock, station 82 on Crawford Gulch. Thank you all very much. And this meeting is adjourned.